It's interesting how you want to be remembered.
So I asked the question about what I hope the legacy is.
When thinking about your legacy, what are people going to remember about you, about your operation?
It's been an honor to be part of the Simmental family. And like any family, there is a legacy. And to me, the legacy is so important to continue on.
I hope the legacy for the next generation have the passion for our breed that we have spent a lifetime building.
All right, I'd like to welcome you to R Plus Simmentals. We're located in Estevan, Saskatchewan. Our story, it began where we live today, 15 miles west of here. Was born on a mixed grain operation with my father and my grandfather at that time. We moved on. Farming was more my father's interest. As I got older, cattle become a bigger part of our operation. He always had cattle, but became a bigger part. In 76, our good friend and neighbor, Wayne Brokenshire, took an AI course. Sorry, 75. So we AI'd some Hereford cows. That year we AI'd to Simmental, Maine Anjou, Blonde Aquitaine, and some Charlet. The following year, the calves, and that were where we found we liked the Simmental the best for whatever reason. We just thought they were good. The following season, when they became bred heifers, that's when we really took to the Simmental breed. They were definitely better. So that's when we decided to continue breeding some Simmental. We weren't real active at any point, but that's how we started into the cattle industry. We moved to our present location in 1992, Lucille and I, and that's when we started into the red and black Simmentals. In 91, we bred some at the old farm, and then when we moved here in 92, we started to grow that side of our operation. I guess the rest, that's an introduction to R Plus and how we ended up where we live today, where we live right in the coal mine district here in Estevan. When we made the decision to move to the place we're living on now, that's when Jason was starting to get some age on him, and I knew he wanted to be the grain farmer. So, and Dad wanted to expand the grain operation. So, with us leaving with the cattle, that really helped to for them to grow the grain farm. So today, Jason, he has taken over the complete grain operation, and Lucille and I just kept the cattle. On our first purchase of a Simmental female, the one we remember, I guess. I don't know if it was actually our first one, but we were so excited. We had pooled our money, Lucille and I working, and we went to the Raw Cell 7. I was working at Raw Cell 7 sales at that time. Picked out this heifer I thought was the greatest thing ever. She was a lot of white, long distance daughter, open heifer, paid $4,000 for her. Took her home. Boy, we were excited. We showed her at the Sioux Line Special, won her class, got her bred. She's not having this calf, so cesarean the calf. The calf's gone. Cow next year's open, dry. That was our first purchase, so we had to go back to work for a few more years till we could afford another one. But that was our story on our first purchase in the Simmental breed.
That was in the dry 80s.
Yeah, terrible living through a drought and thought we'd make it big with a heifer.
Yeah, I thought we should pay $4,000 for it.
The reason that we stuck with the Simmental breed was a few reasons, but the biggest part was I was showing cattle. I was going to agribition at that time we started, and all my neighbors, this area here was huge Simmental. Sioux Line Simmental Association was running. Big membership here. The Charlet Association at one time had 34 members locally. I remember that. But the Simmental deal, like Tableland, Ross L7, Boyd Charles 3C Bar. It just goes on and on, the people that had Simmental cattle. So that was a heavy influence on us. My dream was to be part of that circle, to get involved. Financially, we couldn't do it, but as we moved on, that group of people heavily influenced me. So sticking with Simmental, we grew some of the white cattle, traditional colored cattle. We never had full blood cattle, but the success at the auction mart, I guess, would be the why we switched to the red and black cattle. We just, it was really hard to sell Simmental steer calves for a premium. They were on a no buy list from the buyers. I was working at the auction mart, so you heard it every day. You know, I remember steers coming through the ring bringing 75 cents. It didn't matter if they weighed 4 1/4 right up to 9 weight steers. They brought 75 cents, one bid, took them all. The tan steers at that time would bring, you know, close to $1, and we were getting less. So we had to change something. So that's when we moved into the red cattle. In 91, and don't quote me totally on the years, but I believe it was 91, Barry Labatt and I convinced Barry to come with me to go down south to look for red bulls. I'd, a friend of mine at the time, Steve Reimer from South Dakota, had told me I needed to have a look at these because I was very frustrated with the traditional Simmentals at that time. So we went on our road trip. We still laugh about it because I carried a video camera that weighed like 40 pounds. And we videoed every red bull we could find at that time. We went to Emmons Ranch, another couple places in North Dakota. And we went back then to the sales, and I ended up buying a full brother to Americana at that time. Bought them on price. Barry and I were contending bidders on Americana that day, and probably the best thing was we didn't get them because we still laugh. Neither of us had any money to buy them at that time. So, but as it turned out, I ended up owning Red Stretcher, the full brother to Americana. A little more performance than Americana had. As it turned out, he sired Skurs, which wasn't a good thing at the time because we really wanted to get that pole gene going. That would be where we really went into the red Simmentals. Full knowing to get black, I had to get them red first. So that was our goal, was to introduce the black cattle as quick as we could, but we knew we had to make them red first to get rid of all the diluter genes. Our farm name, again, I go back to Wayne Brokenshire, Tableland, the old Tableland Simmentals. He was the guy that AI'd our first cows. He knew quite a bit about the purebred business at that time. So he was teaching me how to register our cattle. R Plus, that is our brand. Originally, our brand was R bar R, Regis and Ross. That was my grandpa and my dad. So when Dad took over the farm from my grandpa, the brand was so big it took up half the cow. So we applied for a new brand, and that's what they give us, was R Plus. R over cross is the legal term, but R Plus, we called it. So when Wayne was registering these first heifers, just jokingly, he said, Miss R Plus. And it stuck. From that day on, we were known as R Plus. And so we kept the name and registered it, and it became R Plus Simmentals legally. Going back, one of the greatest events that I always thought in the Simmental world was the sensational sale. And there again, my dream was to be able to consign cattle to sensational. I was always able to work at it, helping different people. Tableland #1 was who I worked for the most, and they ended up having a mini production sale there. which where you had to have 10. You had to consign to the association sale 6 head for, I believe it was 3 years, and then that qualified you to have a mini production sale, which you had to have a minimum of 10 head for your mini production. So back in the day that we started out the sale, I remember one year, I believe it was 230 for lots consigned, and it might have got as high as 250. And going back, that was such a great event. It was a 2-day sale, dance, party, in the between night. The auditorium at the Agrodome was packed, like people everywhere. It just was such a cool event, and my dream was to someday have something good enough to consign to Sensational. And as the sale, grew, it also grew out. Some of the people started having their own production sales on farm or in Regina or Moose Jaw, wherever. So sensational numbers started to tail off at that time. So that's when they moved to Moose Jaw. And I think the last year it was in Regina, we consigned 5 heifers to the Sioux Line Simmental part of the sale. And then when it moved to Moose Jaw, then they just had a consignment side. And we consigned a couple times in Moose Jaw, and then we stopped consigning cattle there. To fill you in on the Checkers sale, a lot of you will remember, but the Checkers sale was the inaugural, probably red and black Simmental sale in Canada. In 92, we had a group of 5 heifers that we took to Agribition, and they were all red or red blaze, solid red cattle, no white on them, no white socks. And these were basically red stretcher progeny, but we ended up, that's back in the day when Agribition, I don't remember exactly, but we would have been close to 400 head at the show that year. The Agrodome was stuffed full. The Angus would get a couple alleys on the backside, and the Simmental would have the rest. We showed at the basement there at the Agrodome down in the hockey rink, and we were stalled on the back wall where the washrooms are. And if you're ever showing cattle, that seemed like a bad spot, but it turned out to be the best spot in the barn because everyone goes there once a day. So we always had traffic. But anyway, the white-haired guy, Rob Hollowaychuk, come along one day, and I don't know if you know Rob, it's hard to imitate Rob, but he used a few choice words that he always did, and like, what are these things? Where'd they come from? And started asking questions, and that was good. We had a good visit, introductions, and met him. And the following day, he come back again, but he had a blonde lady with him, Val Pulishy, better known to all of us as Bomber, and she was always in the show barns and stuff. But anyway, we continued our conversation, and the question come up: is there enough of these things around to have a sale? And I thought about it for a while, and I said there probably is, because locally I know that like L7 was breeding some reds, Tableland had started with some reds, Boyd Charles was making some. So we continued on the conversation, and that is the day the concept of Checkers was born. We carried on. Val, she was the one that named the sale Checkers, and me being as smart as I am, it took me a couple years to figure out why she called it Checkers. I just thought it was a nice name, but obviously the red and black played into part, so it took me a while to figure that out. But the first sale we had was hosted in Red Deer. Rob, being innovative guy he was, he kept telling me like, this is going to be a deal. So he knew some artists, so we had art in this auction because we weren't overwhelmed with numbers. So we had art. in the auction. Dennis, I think Craig Fluelling was one of the ringmen. They wore tuxedos. The auctioneer would have been Steve, I believe, the first sales. Steve, they were all in tuxedos. None of us were allowed to work on our own cattle. Buck took care of all the cattle. So our job was to promote and market our cattle. No signs. We were as a group, Checkers. That's it. We all fell under the Checkers name. We had just a crazy sale. I thought I don't remember the total prices, but I know we sold one, I think 17,000, which was crazy for us. We had never sold cattle that kind of values. That was when the first time I ever seen the carousel idea for displaying cattle. That was, I believe it was Rob's invention, but it was used at Red Roundup, which was another crazy deal in the Red Angus breed. But it was just really cool to be part of them first sales, the excitement, enthusiasm, all the traditional breeders were starting to show up at these red functions and leaning to the red cattle. So it was really exciting and a lot of fun to be part of it. The YCS program, I don't know the total history, but I think Rick McIntyre of ABC Simmentals would have been the founder and the driver of it. I certainly was involved early. When I was the leader or president of the Saskatchewan chapter of the YCS, we were going to have a fundraiser. So I purchased a miniature donkey, and the deal was you buy tickets for someone else, like so they win the donkey. So back in those days, the show was huge. So that the evening, there was always an evening banquet dance, and we were having it at that time in the upper level of the Queensberry, which is attached to the Agrodome at Regina Agribition. So as the evening went on, it was our turn to have this fundraiser auction. So I go out to my trailer to get this little donkey, and I'm coming through the barns and the security guys are watching me, and I just keep going with my little donkey, and I get him in the elevator and I'm taking him up. And the security guy, he's just wild with me. I can't do this. And I just continued. I never stopped. I didn't ask questions. I didn't do anything. So we got him upstairs and in the Queensberry, and so we're having an auction and selling the tickets on this little donkey. I don't remember how much money we raised, but I do remember the security catching me in the Queensberry, and I didn't get to use the elevator taking this donkey out. And if you go to the Queensberry, there's a ramp from the third level down to the ground. And I don't know if you've ever tried to lead a donkey, but it took me a long time to get this donkey down this ramp and get him back to the trailer. And I got called in. I think it was the next day I got called in, reprimanded by security for, anyway, we raised a lot of money with this little donkey. All the premier breeders of our breed at the time, they supported it well. So the question is, what boards or associations that I've been involved with in my career as a Simmental breeder. The first one would be the Sioux-Line Simmental Association. I served as the treasurer of it for quite a few years and president for. Back in those days, it wasn't maybe as much of an honor as somebody had to do it, so we took those jobs on. But served as president for it for quite a few years also. The next would have been the YCS, I believe. Oh, yeah, I served as the YCS. Ended up being president. Was part. Yeah, that got the privilege at that time. The YCS, and they maybe still do it, but the YCS leader got the opportunity to sit in on the Saskatchewan board meetings. So that was quite a deal for me as a young kid to sit in the same room with, people I admire, peers, whatever you call them, but they were all guys I sure wanted to be like when I grew up. So that was quite an honor. The next step would have been sitting on the Saskatchewan board. Then I became president of it also. The other part of being on the Saskatchewan board, I got to be the liaison to the Saskatchewan stock growers. So that was another thing, a real big learning deal. You got to sit in on their meetings and, understand more what commercial minded people think. And so that was a big learning thing for me. I was approached many times, to join up and sit on the Canadian board. It's a large commitment, and I turned it down for a lot of years. I wanted to do it, but I just didn't feel I could commit to it. I didn't have the time. We were working, both had full-time jobs. We had young families, so I'm one that believes when you say you're going to sit on a board, you need to sit on that board and fulfill that position, do your job. But anyway, we turned that down. Got joined up with the foundation, and that's like 11 years ago now, I believe. We got involved with the foundation. Stuart Ainsworth called me one night and said we need to help this out. Ken Lewis, myself, Stuart had quite a few meetings. There's a lot of history to the foundation that doesn't need to, I'm not going to go into. But when Ken and I got involved, we had a vision, I guess, for the foundation of where we could take it. And with all the breeders in this great breed that are willing to give money, we've hit that target of $1 million in the foundation. Pretty proud of that, because I've been there since we started it. I know the whole history on it, so quite proud of that. Moved on to the Canadian Simmental Association board, sat there for the full term, 6 years, served as president for 2. Just a huge honor for me to be part of that. Not going to say we made earth-shattering changes, but we certainly, had made some changes, helped the breed, kept the breed going. So pretty proud of those accomplishments in my life. The biggest honor that the Simmental breed has ever given me was when they inducted me into the Hall of Fame. I don't know if there's no words that I can describe. From started out showing cattle, working for people, to the Hall of Fame. Just such an honor, and just very humbling for me. That'll be one of the greatest things that ever happens to me in my life. The question is, who is my heroes or unsung heroes? There's 2 people, or sorry, I shouldn't say that. There's 3 people. First of all, my dad, who has probably taught us work ethic, if nothing else, in life. Just, don't be scared to try and go for it. When it comes to the cattle side of things, there's 2 names that totally influenced me, and I classed them as 2 of my best friends. One is Rob Hollowaychuk, and the second is Barry Labatt. First would be Barry. As a young kid showing cattle, and Barry was always a leader in the Simmental breed right from day one. He always had time to stop, say, "Hey, Marlon, how are you?" Or, talk to me. And I never forgot that. And as I grew in the breed and got older and started, talking to Barry more, and pretty soon we were traveling and going to sales and shows together, and the knowledge and that he was willing to share with me was priceless. The motivational talks that we had, just everything about it was just so good, and so much fun. We had a lot of fun. As I grew older, there's 10-year age difference. We always laugh about that. But Barry's taught me a lot, motivated me a lot. Just a true leader and a true friend in my eyes. Rob Holloway, Chuck of OBI. I told the Checker story. We become very close friends that day. We traveled a lot together. Many 2 o'clock in the morning phone calls. He was always driving. He knew I'd be up. We talked all night long, and just the knowledge that that man had about the inner workings of a cow, I don't think I've ever met anyone like him, or probably never will. But the stuff that he taught me about marketing, and it's just priceless. He's the one that convinced me to have a bull sale. He was just determined that I was going to have a bull sale. We were going to have it right here on the farm. He motivated me when I bought the JSP herd. That was all him in my ear telling me to get it done. So that was the two guys, or three people, two in the cattle side of it, that just mean so much. I was honored to be one of Rob's pallbearers. To be asked to be that was quite an honor for me. But those guys heavily influenced my mind and how to breed cattle. The question about our dispersal, it was be one of the harder versus one of the easiest decisions I've ever made. Was following our bull sale in 21, I guess. Or no, 22. The bull sale in 22, we were calving like the most cows we'd ever calved. Hit a wall, total exhaustion, played out. The sale was over. Everybody went home. I went back to the barn, calving cows. In the nights, I always do all the night shifts around here. Just decided that night that I don't know how many more years I could do this. The paperwork that comes with the purebred business, to do it right, it's a lot of work. So that night I decided we were dispersing. Went to the house to have coffee with Lucille that morning. Told her we're dispersing. I don't know if she believes me yet, but we made that decision that morning. I phoned Ben Wright that day, told him to book a date, we're selling. He didn't believe me. 2 days later, he called back and he said, "Are you serious?" I said, "Absolutely." So he picked the date, and I guess that's the history of the dispersal and the planning. Once you pick a date, okay, you got to get ready. Never dreamed the work that's involved with planning a sale of that. We had quite a few cows at that time, so it was a pretty big deal. Advice, she's asked what advice I'd have. Well, don't get run over by a bull. That would be the first advice I'd have for you. I think everybody's heard that story, but I spent quite a few days in bed when I was supposed to be getting ready for a sale. We knew someday we'd have to disperse, and we were hoping we could do it, before our health forced us to do it, and we were lucky enough to do that. So that would be my biggest advice. If you know you're going to disperse, make sure you can do it and enjoy it. One of probably the most fun days was sale day for me, other than the 50 below weather, but to sit and visit with the people that come and honored us by buying our cattle. It was fun. I enjoyed every minute of it.
How we met. We were high school sweethearts, right?
Yeah.
It was in grade 10. Marlon got kicked out of typing class. He was walking down the hall and he met one of his buddies and he said, "Come into the art class. It's a blast. You never have to be there." So Marlon went down and joined art and came into the room once, I think. the whole semester and asked me out, and we started dating. He got his license that day and came and picked me up that night, and that was our first date.
1976,
77.
7. So I met.
We got married in April of 1983. It was the weekend of the Sioux Line sale. So all Marlon's buddies were there for the sale and our wedding. It was great. And yeah, on the farm, I did the books and things like that because I worked full time. And there was three of them, Marlon, his dad, and Jason. They didn't need me standing out at the chute getting yelled at or anything. So it's all good. Raised the kids. Josh was born in 1987. Kelsey was born in 1988. Kelsey sadly passed away in 2002.
You had a successful career as a production accountant for some of the major oil companies in the Estevan areas where she worked and what she did. So she supported our family through the BSE years, actually. When BSE hit, that was devastating to us because our sole income was from livestock at that time. So with Lucille's working, that's helped us get through those times.
I was making sandwiches for lunch one day. It was for the dispersal, and there was I don't know how many guys here, and I had just retired, and Josh was doing some paperwork at the table, and I'm making the sandwiches, and I'm squirting mustard on the meat, and I'm going, and this is what my life has become, making sandwiches. And I was just, but it was all good in the end. Everyone got fed, so.
Well, that during the dispersal, we had upwards of 20 people working here. Out on the farm, you got to feed them. So, yeah, Lucille and family, friends, like bringing out pails of soup and sandwiches. Fun time, though.
Yeah.
Lots of memories built during those times.
For the dispersal, it was planning for days of food because Ben told us that we had to serve everybody. So that's what we did. So we had breakfast, lunch, and supper for everybody. So it was fun, but there was a lot of Bailey's drank. That's all I can say.
The favorite memory for me in the cattle business period is agribition. It was what we talked about all year. It's like you couldn't wait to get there, and you didn't want to leave once you got there. It's the pinnacle of the cattle industry. Back in the 80s, the Simmental show was 400 head deep. You got 25 2-year-old bulls in a class. Just amazing. And you could go there and see all breeds of cattle, upwards of 5,000 head of cattle in a barn. Like, it was just such a cool concept. And for me, I could study cattle all day long. I remember, tie outs where you'd see thousands of cows walking that racetrack. It's something everybody should have had the opportunity to see and be a part of. It just was, to me, it was everything. Agribition is, there's lots of other things that certainly are great memories, road trips, all that with good friends, and go to sales and that type of stuff. But agribition, still to this day, I know they all kind of laugh at this old guy that hangs around there for 4 and 5 days. It's just really hard for me not to be there. I just enjoy watching cattle shows and cattle in general and studying cattle. Something I've always intrigued me, and hopefully I can continue going for a lot of years yet.
One of the other best memories I have is Marlon being inducted to the Hall of Fame. That means absolutely everything. Like, I'm so proud of him and how hard he worked. And it was just a joint effort, but I wasn't out at the barn for 4 months of the year calving out cows. So, but for people to use his bulls and his progeny, I guess is what you'd call it, makes me very proud of him.
What is my legacy, or what do I want to be remembered by? Is I hope people, remember the R Plus name, but I hope people remember, Lucille and I for who we are and what we did to help this breed into the future. I think Simmental, in my eyes, is the number one breed today. I know Angus has a higher registry, but Simmental cattle influence sales like Auction Mart is second to none right now. The breeders can keep that going. So yes, to end, our legacy would be that the R Plus name is remembered. Hopefully it'll show up. I know it goes away. Everybody's prefix will go away eventually, but if one guy remembers and tells a story about something we did, that would be pretty cool. The breed's been good to us. We survived. We raised our family. Made made a life with it. Our friends are cattle people. Typically, everything that in our life revolved around the barn, the show barn, the Simmental breed. Um, every meeting I went to was to represent Simmental. Just has been so good to us. It's hard to put it into words. We laughed or dispersed because we thought it was the right thing to do. It certainly wasn't because of the people or the cattle or where the breed was headed, because I think the breed's in a great place. It's positioned to only get better as long as the breeders, concentrate on doing the right things and continue this great breed moving forward.